Alright. Hello everyone. This is probably the first time I'll be appearing on camera for this channel. And the things we're gonna do today is gonna be a little different from what I usually do on this channel. If you count like 30-second crappy videos as something to do. Today, what we'll be doing is we will be reviewing audio gear. Yes, I do have a fair collection of earphones which I want to do a review for. So today we'll be reviewing, here we go, the Moondrop Aria. So here's the box. Let me get you a little bit of a closer view for it. You can see an anime girl. This is a Moondrop specialty. I presume her name would be Aria to match the product, but who knows, right? You know what this anime girl reminds me of? Mori Calliope. With the pink hair and the sort of getup, really reminds me of Mori Calliope. Very nice looking thing. If you've never bought Moondrop stuff before, they are a Chinese brand. They have produced a lot of earphones, all of which are pretty good products, and they really love to plaster anime girls on their packaging, which I wholeheartedly approve. Okay. Normally I would say... Oh wait, let me show you the back. Nothing much really. There's like a frequency graph which is unreliable. There's some marketing blurbs about some things, but not really something you need to worry about. Just now, let us open this boy up and let's see what's inside. Usually, you know, a professional YouTuber would unbox this for the first time to get authentic reactions, but I have opened this thing up and I have used it for a few months now. But hey, let's play pretend that I have not opened it. Right? There we go. Throw the cover over there. And we have the inner box. There's this sort of swirly design thingy, which is sort of their design motif for this model. When there's light that shines directly onto it, it does look very nice. It glistens. It glistens. Ignore the sweat drops. That's my sweaty palms on the packaging. Sorry. Again, already opened this thing. It goes from like sort of yellow to like a rose gold thingy. Now, how do you open this? There is a flip mechanism. It's attached by magnets. When you open it, you are presented with a pair of IEMs themselves. You can see here 2 IEMs, 1, 2. And what's this compartment? Well, flip it down. You have the opening case. Oh no, the storage case, sorry. So you have the IEMs on top, the earphones, and the carrying case. Now, let me take this thing out and show you what it be. Yep, takes a little effort to pry out the pair of earphones. Literally pry them out. There's no like real grooves for you, so you just have to pry it out. Not the best design decision, but there it is. So we have the Moondrop Aria. As you can see, There we go, let it focus. Looks very nice. if you have seen the Moondrop SSR, it kind of looks like that basically. Here's the other side. There we go. Very nice looking things. There's little text saying Aria. You flip it here. These things are using 2-pin connectors. I like 2-pin connectors much more than I like MMCX. Reason being, most of my earphones which have MMCX connectors have failed. Not to say that the 2-pin ones don't fail, but the failure rate is less at the very least. Here's the IOPS. Okay, let's see what the case gives us. Try it out. Here's the carrying case. It looks pretty nice. Again, this is basically the same thing you'll see in the Moondrop Starfield as well. It's got a little golden text on it saying Moondrop Co. It uses a golden sort of zipper here. I will advise you that this thing tends to oxidize, so after a while the sort of gold shine gives way for more of a it'll look duller over time, I'll say. The material itself, pretty solid, as you can hear. You can hear that sound, right? There's also, you know, the material itself is like semi, I'd say false leather. Okay, open it out. You see, yeah, I took it out already. So you have a pack of basically ear tips. The funny thing about Moondrop is that instead of giving you more variety of tips, you know what they do? They give you 2 of each. Okay, sorry for that very abrupt jump cut. I ran out of recording storage, but now we're back. Opening up the case again. So, they give you, first of all, ear tips. The weird thing with Moondrop is they give 2 of each size instead of giving you more different types of tips. I don't know why, but they've been doing that ever since the start. So there you go. We'll see how that affects the sound later. And we come to this cable. My impressions about this cable is that the core of the cable itself is good, but the things that Moondrop did to it have sort of made it worse. Okay, so we have these standard 2-pin connectors, as you know. I don't have any problem with the connector itself, but I have problems with this memory guide. It feels very cheap. It feels like someone just draped PVC over this. It wraps your ear a bit unnaturally, so it's quite uncomfortable. And then when you go down to the wire itself, it's fabric covered, but the fabric quality is not that great either. So you can see these very unnatural kinks in the cable, and it isn't flexible, but it also tries to tangle itself. The connector itself is nothing to be that impressed about, but it does the job. It's terminated in standard 3.5mm unbalanced. Now, this cable reminds me of something. You know why? Here is my Fail Snow Lotus 1.0 Plus 2.5mm edition. Oh, that name is so long. But you can see these are very similar looking jacks, very similar design. The only really different thing is it's terminated One is terminated at 3.5 millimeter unbalanced, sorry, and the other is 2.5 millimeter unbalanced. No, it's balanced. Oh my god. Yeah. You know what I mean. Same connection. And then when you look at the braids, you can once again see they're very similar looking braids. Only that the braid on this thing, on the Moondrop Aria's cable, is a little looser because of the fabric lining. I feel like this is pretty much the same cable that they have just covered in fabric and made it worse. And then you go on to the Y split. Once again, a very similar design here, if not identical. Same sort of Y split, same sort of rectangle thingy, except the Moondrop one has some text on it. Very similar. And this cable itself from the Fire and Snow Lotus, it's not the greatest thing ever, but it feels alright, it performs alright. It's not too prone to memory that it'll tangle immediately, but then when they cover it, you think that's okay, but when Moondrop covers it in fabric, it makes it worse. It feels less nice to hold, it feels less nice to use. It tangles, it kinks at weird angles, and it doesn't wrap well. I mean, Moondrop has never been known for good cables, but I'd have rather they just included the same thing that they did with the Moondrop Starfield, because this kind of sucks. Performance-wise, it's not gonna be bad enough to degrade the sound of the Aria, but from a feel perspective, this thing is no. Okay, so let's see what else we got in this box. Here it is. It's all empty now. I do see here we have, let me just remove this bit. We have some Chinese warranty card, which probably doesn't apply for me. We have another box. What is this? So, open it up. Here's what we get. This is your tools. So you get a pair of nippers, and you get a set of spare filters. So what these do is basically the nozzle of the Moondrop Aria can be replaced with these nozzles when you get earwax into the nozzle. You can replace it with this. I've never done so personally myself because I clean my ears pretty often, but it's good to have these because Moondrop themselves say that the most common failure point for these things is that dust and earwax gets caught in the nozzle, and then the sound doesn't exit. So with these and the nippers, you can replace your filters if necessary. And that's about it for this thing. You get more cards with like QR information, and you get a instruction manual. But like, come on, these are earphones. I think you know how these work. Plug the wires in, plug it into your phone or music player of choice. Play the music. Music comes out of earphone. Profit. Pretty simple. That's the unboxing experience. I'd say pretty good. Moondrop, even for like their worst products, they don't give you the most accessories, but everything looks nice. It's presented neatly. The packaging is appealing. The design is appealing. I have no problems. Let's let's go to a bit of a closer look for the earphones, right? So these are made of aluminum. I think it's aluminum. It's probably aluminum. And compared to the glossy paint job of the Starfield, which looks nice but degrades a little bit faster, I think this more subdued look is quite better. It isn't as showy, it's more subtle. And the matte black is indeed very nice. It also feels alright on your ear as well. So very good, very good. Now let's plug these in. You know how this works. Oh yeah, let me mention that the left and right markers for these things, it's very subtle. It's like this subtle text on black plastic, which you'll barely be able to make out. Really, you know, again, just not a good cable in general. I wouldn't recommend you keep this. Buy a replacement cable because it'll probably be much better in terms of feel. In terms of sound, I don't know, but in terms of feel, get a replacement cable. This kind of sucks. It does at least fit the. It does at least sort of fit the aesthetic of the earphone, I would say. All black with sort of glowy rose gold accents. Very nice. Plug in the tips, and I'm gonna do some B-roll of me listening to the earphones, but I'm telling you, I've owned this thing for a few months now. I have a pretty good picture of how it sounds. But hey, how about some eye candy? Well, maybe not eye candy, but how about some footage of me listening to music? Sound good? Alright.
Yeah, I gave him a ride home because we're dating.
Wow. There it is.
Oh, baby, you've been making me crazy. The way my heart has been racing. I've been feeling you lately, baby. You've been making me crazy. The way my heart has been racing. I've been feeling you lately, yeah.
just me traveling alone. Wake up another day, I need to find my way home. Just me traveling alone. Tripped on my stepping stone, got up and kept on going. Just me traveling alone. In desperation, wake up another day, I need to find my way home. Just me traveling. Stay with me, 나夜中の青空に帰らないでとないな。青い季節が今目の前。Stay with me、口癖を言いながら二人の時をないで。まだ忘れず大事にしていた。
Alright, now that I had a bit of time listening to things. Actually, I've had 2 months worth. So, let's talk about your tips, right? So, I find that the stock Moondrop tips are pretty bad. They're a little stiff. They try to go in deep, but not really. And they don't keep a seal in my ears well, so sometimes I have to sort of readjust the fit. Right now I'm using these. Oops. These are orthophon tips. They're a little shorter. The opening size is a bit the same, but they are using a softer silicone, so they go into your ears more easily, more comfortably. You do lose out on a bit of bass, but I think it's completely alright for the Aria. And of course, it's more comfortable than the Moondrop tips. I would recommend using orthophon tips for your Moondrop Arias. If you happen to pick one up, get some orthophon tips. They're pretty good. Alright, let's talk about source matching. So, I've been using the Aria with my LG V20. That one has an ESS Saber DAC, and my iBasso DX150, which has an AK DAC, an AK4490. Basically, so running with the Aria, I find that the LG V20 tends to give the Aria a bit more treble. There's a bit more, I guess, high-end going on when you use the LG V20 with the Aria. However, it can sometimes become a little shouty. Depends on the song, really. So the pros is you get a bit more high-end presence. The cons, sometimes it gets shouty. With the DX150 iBasso, usually my experience with AK DACs is that they are warmer. They give you the feeling that you have a wider soundstage, and it remains pretty much the same for the Aria. It does have times when it thickens up the sort of mid-bass just a little too much, that for some songs it can sound a little overbearing. I actually like how the LG V20 handles the bass a little bit more, although if I had to choose a preference, usually I bias the iBasso more, if only because I like the sound, like a warmer sound for the Arias a bit more. But really it could go either way, and it really does depend on which song you listen to. For example, the song I showcased from Lemaitre, Stepping Stone, I find that it sounds better on the V20 because on the DX150 the electronic synths just sound overly thickened, syrupy at times, which the LG V20 doesn't do as much. But then In some cases, like city pop songs, or the one like that I showed, "Stay With Me" remix. That one sounded better with the DX150. It sort of embraces that analog nature a bit more. Yeah, I'd say, of course, if you have both, you get to experience the best of both for any sound that you want. But of course, in general, I'd say I'd lean towards buying a source that is warmer for the Aria. It works well with that. All right, let's talk about the bass of the Moondrop Aria. It's definitely got the quantity. It's a very present sort of bass presentation. It's thick, very maybe not very thick, but decently thick. It's got what I would say is a somewhat soft nature. The slam isn't as hard, but there's a decent amount of decay that sort of gives songs a thump. It's not a detailed thump. If we're talking about bass detail, I wouldn't say this is the best, but it is enough to spice up the more heavier side of music or things like EDM. At least for the bass, it is quite sufficient. It sometimes bleed into the mids just a little bit, but it's excusable in that I don't find it badly tuned or anything. It's just a bit livelier than usual. And then we talk about the mid-range. As usual, Moondrop is probably best known because they tune the mids very well. The presentation here is, I would say it's quite similar to the Starfield. Very, the mids are always present in the mix. It's never the most prominent, but it's always present. And there's a sort of very relaxed nature going on that's even more relaxed than the Starfield. A lot of people complain that the Starfield is a little shouty. I don't think you'll find that problem in the Aria. I personally don't find the Starfield shouty, but if the Starfield isn't shouty to me, I don't think the Aria will be a problem for you. Mids are very sweet sounding, although I tend to find that it handles female vocals better than male vocals. It softens the sort of vocal presentation just a little bit to make the song more melodic. But nonetheless, it is a very good mid presentation, and it's probably the standout for the Aria, much as it did for the Starfield. Then we come on to the highs, to which I say it's not that present. There's a little bit of sparkle up top just to keep this thing from sounding dark, but it's not really impressive. I don't think IM was tuned for clarity, but more for warm, relaxed tuning, and for what it is, they did it well. The treble range here is really nothing I would write about. It's alright. It's fair to give the song a bit of life and zest, but it's not impressive. I think if you buy this thing, you'll probably buy it more for the mids and the bass, although even the bass itself is not going to be bass head level, let's just say. If you ask me about the Aria soundstage, I've heard people say that because of the way that the Aria is tuned, so the Starfield is tuned sort of harmonish, but a bit more lax. And then the aria is an even more lax tuning of harmon. It's getting closer to like a slightly subtle V shape, a very well done V shape, but it's getting to that direction with its bass. But people say that the aria is maybe, in terms of soundstage, a bit wider than the Starfield. I haven't experienced that myself. I feel like they're basically the same. Maybe because that the aria is slightly less shouty. Maybe people perceive that as the musician being further from the ears. But I think in terms of soundstage, the aria and the Starfield are the same. In terms of technicalities, I'm talking about the resolution, the detail separation, the imaging, things like that. Again, they stay mostly the same, except the aria is ever so slightly worse than a Starfield. That's not to say it's bad. It's just that because of the way it's tuned, I feel like details are a bit more smeared than usual. And in certain heavy songs or songs with drops, you might notice that the aria is it keeps up, but it's just a little too crowded that it can sometimes sound very overloaded. If you're looking for a set that is able to get a lot of detail, I'd rather point you to the Starfield, even if the Starfield doesn't really resolve detail that much either. But for the aria, I'd say that the detail side of thing and the soundstage side of thing, it's all average. For the price, it matches the price point you're paying. But it's not really punching above its competitors in this category, at least. Alright, so let's do some comparisons, right? So here's the Moondrop Aria versus the Moondrop Starfield. As you can see, very similar looks actually, except that the front plate of the Aria is a bit flatter than the front plate of the Starfield. Sorry for the tangle of wires, but deal with it. You can see that there's a bit of a bulge when you look at the Starfield in the front plate, but the front plate of Aria, relatively flat. It doesn't really affect your wearing experience though, because they're essentially the same on this side. So you should have a similar wearing experience with both. Looks wise, I still like the Starfield more because the Starfield just looks beautiful. The Aria is subtle, professional, I like it. But if I wanted something that's got the bling bling factor, I'm gonna take the Starfield all day, every day. This thing looks nice. Yeah, I wear different tips on it, whatever, but sound wise, I would say that the Starfield is leaner. They're both very similar sounding. Moondrop's whole catalog is somewhat similar sounding because they're both sort of harmon tuned. I'm gonna pull up some graphs courtesy of Critical. You'll see that they're pretty similar to each other, but the Aria will probably, when you listen to music, you'll see that the Aria has a slightly thicker sub bass as well as mid bass. The Starfield is a lot leaner on that front. In terms of mids, I actually prefer the mids of the Starfield over the Aria. They're slightly more detailed, they're slightly more present. People will say that they sound shouty, but I don't find it shouty at all. I like the mids of the Starfield more than I do the Aria. But if I had to take the bass, I'd probably take the Aria's bass more. It's got more presence. It's not that high quality, but it's got more presence than the Starfield. Maybe you can EQ it up. The highs of these are both, whatever. Don't worry about it. It's similar. They're both not that great in terms of the treble. Technicalities wise, again, soundstage, I find they're pretty much identical. Details, imaging, resolution, Starfield wins. It's ever so slightly better than the Aria in terms of those categories. It resolves a bit better, it has a bit more detail in the music, everything sounds a bit more defined, whereas it's a little smeared with the Aria. It will depend on your taste. I think a lot of people will like the Aria more because despite how cool this looks, the Aria's look is a lot less divisive, and sound wise, I think a lot of people who listen to electronic music or less vocal inclined genres will like the Aria more. For someone who has a lighter sort of taste in music, the Starfield will do you much better. Although it's like there's two sides. On the one hand, they're very similar to each other, but on the other hand, they're also quite different. But yeah, if you like electronic, somewhat heavier music, this thing. Although if you are a pure EDM enthusiast, I'm pretty sure some KZs will probably be better for you. But if you want a lighter taste in music or something with more female vocals, if you listen to Olivia Ong, something like that, you'll probably like the Starfield a lot more. Alright, now let's compare between the Moondrop Aria and another Moondrop, which is the Moondrop SSP. So you can see the size of these IEMs are a bit different. The SSP is definitely smaller than the Aria. They're both pretty nice to put in your ears though. I don't find discomfort in both of them at all. The build quality itself, I actually like the cables from the SSP more. It's this sort of transparent thingy. It's way more malleable and it's way better feeling than the Aria's cable. This twiddly fabric thing. See, it's already tangling as I am filming this. What a bad cable. This thing though, this thing has a great cable, and I don't know why they didn't just use this cable for the Aria. Like, the Aria is supposed to be more expensive than the SSP. Why? I'll never understand. But in terms of sound, again, I'll put up a graph. This is also from Critical. You can again see that it's pretty similar. But what you think is gonna be similar, well, when you listen to it, the SSP, I'd say tuning wise, the SSP is somewhat better than the Aria. I like that the vocals and mids are a bit more present. However, I will say that because of that, the SSP sounds ever so slightly more dry than the Aria. The Aria softens the detail, but it's more melodic, whereas the SSP is a bit more raw, I guess. I don't hate it. What I do hate about the SSP, that the Aria doesn't make the mistake. The mistake that the SSP makes is that because it is small in terms of size, the driver doesn't really push enough bass, even when the SSP is already a bass boosted SSR. It just isn't capable of producing enough bass that it sounds flat at points. Whereas the Aria, yeah, no problem. The Aria's bass is not the greatest, but it's definitely more prominent than the SSP. The other thing about the SSP is that when you go up to a certain amount of volume, the driver sort of overloads itself and it becomes raspy sounding. The entire sound becomes raspy. It's like when you turn the volume too much and it becomes like irate bass. But now it's raspy. I don't like it in that way. And I think that's a common point of this common weakness for most small drivers that not a lot of brands can fix. And the SSP surely ain't fixing that. Because of that, I will have to give the win to the SSP here. If you have the extra money to shell for the I have to give the win to the Aria. If you have more money to shell out for the Aria. If you want to experience what Moondrop tuning is like, the SSP is pretty nice, but it is limited by its size. Generally, though, save up for the Aria. So you're presented with three choices. Either you go for the Starfield. It has the most details and technicalities out of the three, the SSP and the Aria, but it's more suited for light genres. You go for the Aria if you want to listen to more electronic stuff. It's a little cheaper, but there's also a bit less detail. Or you go for the SSP if you want sort of a entry-level product. This thing, I think, is its own niche, but for these two, it basically boils down to which one's looks you like more, and if you have the money, just shell for this. Because sound-wise, I wouldn't say they're interchangeable, but if you can't afford a Starfield, just go for a Starfield. If you can't afford it, the Aria is there, but really, they're similar. Alright, so after quite a long while, let us come to the conclusion of this review. Let me clean up my desk a little bit here. So, the Moondrop Arias. Sort of the in-between of the SSP and the Starfield. It's... I guess it's sort of the Starfield getting more mainstream. You have a more subtle paint job. I would presume a more durable paint job. There is, more, the packaging experience is somewhat improved, but I'd say it's similar to the Starfield. The sound is also catering to the mainstream a bit more instead of Harman, just a slightly lax Harman from the Starfield. It's going for a very loose interpretation of the Harman tuning, which gives it a prominent bass that is able to play with a wider variety of genres. So if you thought the Starfield was weak with electronic, this thing is here to please it for you. It plays well with many more genres, so it's more versatile. And if you are someone who's more of a casual listener, I think this is probably going to be your better choice. Even besides the weakness that it's got a bad cable, another weak point is details are less good. Its technical ability is really nothing to write home about, but its tuning is sound. It's an easy listen, and if anyone has $80 to spare and no more, I say go for it. This is probably one of the safest choices you can have in the chi-fi landscape right now. If you don't want to risk stuff like KZ, which may have build quality issues, or a V-shaped sound, if you want something a bit more refined, the Aria is your go-to, I must say. And with that, I think we're at the end of this review. This is my first video review, so let me know if there's any suggestions. You can put that in a comment. Like the video, subscribe, although I don't really produce a lot of content in any sort of reasonable amount of time. I just do anything that comes to me in the spur of the moment, but I would appreciate it if you drop a like, if you subscribe. I will also put the link to my personal blog, where I have some written reviews of other earphones and IEMs. Those will probably more refined and detailed than what I've done in this video. There's also a lot more photography of the earphones themselves, if you want to check that out. I also have an art section, which was just some things that I did a few years back. And in the About section of the blog, you will also see some ways that you can donate to me if you want these videos to come out more often. If you want me to get the money to buy these earphones to make a review, you could support me over there. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Peace.